son's fiance why his first wife really died before the wedding. My son Kevin is 32, and everything a mother should be proud of. He's a successful corporate lawyer, drives a BMW, owns a beautiful house in the suburbs. His fiance Bridget is 26, works as a kindergarten teacher, and has this sweet, soft-spoken way about her that reminds me of a deer. She practically worships Kevin. But here's what Bridget doesn't know. Kevin's first wife, Lauren, didn't die in a hiking accident like he tells everyone. I know because I was the one who talked to the police. I was the one who saw the bruises Lauren tried to hide. I was the one she called crying 2 weeks before she died, begging me to talk to Kevin about his temper. Kevin has always had a darkness in him. When he was 10, I caught him holding our cat underwater in the bathtub to see how long it would take to stop moving. When I screamed at him, he looked at me with this cold expression and said he was conducting an experiment. The cat survived, barely. In high school, his girlfriend Melissa broke up with him at a party. He smiled, said he understood, then slashed all 4 of her tires in the parking lot. He always had an alibi. Kevin met Lauren in law school. She was confident, ambitious, planning to be a judge someday. By the time they married, she'd quit her job, cut off her friends, and flinched every time he raised his voice. I tried to talk to her privately once. She insisted everything was fine, but I saw the fingerprint bruises on her upper arms. 3 years into their marriage, Lauren went hiking alone. That's what Kevin said. She fell off a cliff on a trail she'd hiked 100 times before. The police ruled it accidental death, but Lauren had called me the night before, whispering that she was planning to leave him, that she'd hidden copies of bank statements showing Kevin had been stealing from his clients. She said she was going to turn him in. The next day, she was dead. Those bank statements never surfaced. I told the police about the call, about the bruises, about everything. They questioned Kevin for hours. His lawyer father got involved. The investigation went nowhere. Kevin inherited everything, including the evidence of his crimes that died with Lauren. He met Bridget 6 months later. Sweet, naive Bridget who thinks Kevin hung the moon. I watched him do the same thing all over again. First, he convinced her to move in with him. Then he started commenting on her friends, how they were bad influences. Last month, Bridget mentioned getting her master's degree. Kevin laughed and said she wouldn't be able to handle it. 2 weeks ago, I saw a bruise on Bridget's wrist. When I asked about it, Kevin jumped in before she could answer, said she'd bumped it at the gym. Bridget nodded silently, but I saw the fear in her eyes. The same fear I'd seen in Lauren's. Kevin announced they're getting married in 3 months. He wants Bridget pregnant within a year. She'll be trapped the same way Lauren was, except this time, I don't think Bridget will survive long enough to plan an escape. I pulled Kevin aside after dinner last week and told him he needed to tell Bridget the truth about Lauren, or I would. He laughed in my face. Then he leaned in close and said if I ever contacted Bridget privately, he'd make sure I never saw my grandchildren. He'd tell everyone I was senile, making up stories. Who would believe a 67-year-old woman over a successful lawyer? I made a choice. I called Bridget and asked her to meet me for lunch. When she showed up, excited and trusting, I told her everything. About the cat, about Melissa's tires, about Lauren's bruises and that phone call, about the bank statements that disappeared. Bridget sat there frozen, her face getting paler with every word. She touched her wrist where the bruise had been. She said quietly that Kevin had grabbed her there when she'd suggested postponing the wedding to save more money, that he'd squeezed until she agreed to keep the date. I showed her the police reports I'd kept from Lauren's death, the photos of Lauren's previous injuries I'd secretly taken, the voicemail Lauren had left me that final night, which I'd backed up in 3 different places. Bridget listened to Lauren's voice, scared and whispering about leaving Kevin, about the evidence, about being afraid. When it ended, Bridget was crying. She said she needed time to think and left. That was 4 days ago. Yesterday, Kevin showed up at my house. No Bridget. He stood in my doorway with that same cold expression he'd had as a 10-year-old boy with a drowning cat. He told me Bridget had called off the wedding and wouldn't take his calls. He asked what I'd done. When I didn't answer, he smiled. He said I'd made a terrible mistake, that I'd lost my son, and when he does find someone else to marry, I'll never meet my grandchildren. Then, he turned and walked away.